All right, get ready because today we are really going deep into the mind of the one and only Sherlock Holmes.
Oh,
We're going to be exploring a book called A Few Lessons from Sherlock Holmes.
right.
It's by Peter Bevelin.
Yeah.
And the goal here is not to solve crimes,
Right.
but to look at what timeless wisdom we can find in Sherlock Holmes's methods and how it can apply to our own modern lives.
Mm.
I'm excited
Yeah, me too.
to see what we find.
I think it's fascinating how much we can actually learn from a fictional detective
Yeah.
like Sherlock Holmes.
Right.
You know, his methods,
Yeah.
they go beyond just solving mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
It's really like a framework for thinking, learning, and even connecting with people.
You know, I've always been so intrigued by his observation skills.
Yeah.
But is it really just about seeing more?
Well,
Or is there something more to that?
that's a great question.
Yeah.
There's definitely a distinction between just seeing and actually observing.
Okay.
Remember that famous line?
Oh,
You see, but you do not observe.
I love that line.
Yeah.
It's all about engaging your senses,
Yes.
noticing details others miss.
Right.
Okay, so it's not just good eyesight.
It's more than that.
It's more about being present, being mindful.
Exactly.
But how does that play out in a Sherlock Holmes story?
Well, think about that classic example from A Study in Scarlet,
Right.
when he meets Watson for the first time.
Right.
And just from a glance, he can tell Watson's entire backstory.
Oh, wow.
He observes his tan, his demeanor, how he even walks.
Oh.
And from that, he deduces that he's a military doctor recently returned from Afghanistan.
Wow. It's like he's a human lie detector or something.
Right.
But in today's world where we're bombarded with so much information, how can we apply that kind of focus
Yeah.
when there are so many distractions?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's true. There's so much coming at us all the time.
Yeah.
It's almost like we need a Sherlock Holmes filter
Right.
for our brain
Yeah.
to cut through all the noise and find what's really important.
Right.
Like how he could pick out that one crucial clue in a messy crime scene.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of face a similar challenge every day
Yeah.
with the constant influx of news, social media, just information overload.
Yeah.
So it's about training our attention,
Okay.
choosing what to focus on,
Right.
instead of just passively consuming everything that comes our way.
Right. So being intentional with our attention
Exactly.
instead of just letting it get swept away in the current.
Yes.
I can see how that's relevant today.
Absolutely.
But Holmes wasn't just about observation.
Right.
He was also a master of logic, right?
Yeah, he
It
was.
was like he had a built-in algorithm for solving problems.
He was definitely a master of both deductive and inductive reasoning.
Okay, break that down for me.
Okay, so deductive reasoning,
Mm-hmm.
it starts with a general principle
Okay.
and works towards a specific conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Like say, all dogs have fur
Okay.
and your neighbor has a dog.
Yeah.
You can deduce that their dog also has fur.
Right.
That's deductive reasoning.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
But didn't Holmes also use a different type of reasoning too?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
Inductive reasoning,
Okay.
which is the opposite.
Okay.
It starts with specific observations and builds up to a general conclusion.
Got it.
And the best example of that is in The Adventure of the Speckled Band.
Oh, yeah.
So there's this mysterious death,
Right.
no signs of forced entry,
Mm-hmm.
but there are these strange objects in the room,
Okay.
like a ventilator, a dummy bell, pull a bed that's clamped to the floor.
Huh.
And from these seemingly random clues,
Yeah.
he uses inductive reasoning to conclude that the murder weapon was actually a venomous snake
Wow.
delivered through the ventilator.
Okay, so he's piecing together a puzzle
Yeah.
with these clues.
Right.
He's forming a hypothesis and then he tests it out.
Exactly.
But how can we average folks who aren't solving murders use this kind of reasoning in our everyday lives?
I think you'd be surprised how often we actually use these reasoning skills without even realizing it.
Really?
It's about like troubleshooting your Wi-Fi
Okay.
when the connection's slow.
Yeah.
So you check other devices,
Hmm.
see if any recent changes you made.
Yep.
Maybe you even call your internet provider.
Right. Right.
You're gathering data
right.
to figure out, is your laptop, the router, or something else entirely?
Yeah.
You're basically using inductive reasoning to
Wow.
solve the mystery of your slow internet.
It's like we're all mini detectives in our own way, gathering information,
Yeah.
making deductions, testing assumptions.
Right.
And that kind of brings me to another question. I always thought of Holmes as like a walking encyclopedia,
Right.
like all book smarts and knowledge.
Yeah.
But this book brings up this whole idea of emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like kind of an odd pairing with a logic-driven detective.
It's a common misconception.
Yeah.
While logic was his foundation,
Mm-hmm.
he actually had a really deep understanding of human emotion,
Oh, really?
which is what Bevelin actually points to as being crucial to his success.
Wait, really? I always pictured him as like the ultimate rational thinker,
Yeah.
almost like a machine.
I can see that.
So how did he use emotional intelligence when he was doing detective work?
Well, to solve crimes, he
Yeah.
needed to understand people's motivations, their fears,
Oh, okay.
their desires.
Mm-hmm.
He had to read between the lines, decode their body language,
Oh.
and anticipate their actions.
Wow.
Like a great example is in A Scandal in Bohemia,
Okay.
where he outsmarts Irene Adler by understanding her emotional attachment to a photograph.
Oh.
And he uses that insight to predict her actions and solve the case.
That's incredible. So it's not just cold, hard logic.
Right.
It's also about empathy and understanding human nature.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's something that we can all benefit from,
Yeah.
whether we're building relationships, navigating conflicts, or even just succeeding in our careers.
Right.
Developing emotional intelligence, observing nonverbal cues, practicing empathy. Learning to read between the lines can be so powerful.
I like that we're starting to see a more well-rounded picture of Sherlock Holmes now.
Yeah.
He was brilliant, yes, but also a keen observer of human nature,
Right.
using both logic and emotional intelligence to navigate the world.
Precisely. And that brings us to another crucial element of Holmes's method.
Okay.
His ability to think creatively and break free from conventional thinking.
Ah, yes, the classic think outside the box advice.
Yeah.
But what did that actually look like for Holmes?
Yeah.
What set him apart from every other detective?
Well, for him, it was about never settling for the obvious answer.
Okay.
Like in The Speckled Band, most people would assume the victim died of natural causes.
Yeah, probably.
But he questioned every assumption, explored every possibility, no matter how outlandish it seemed.
Wow.
And that ultimately led him to the truth.
That's right. The venomous snake delivered through a ventilator.
Exactly.
Talk about creative problem solving. But how can we, in our everyday lives, actually cultivate that kind of outside-the-box thinking? It seems like some people are just naturally more creative.
While some might have a natural inclination,
Yeah.
there are definitely techniques we can all practice.
Like what?
Okay, well, first, question your assumptions.
Okay.
Don't just accept things at face value.
Yeah.
Dig a little deeper. Ask why. Explore alternative explanations.
So really challenge the status quo.
Exactly.
Okay. Well,
Another powerful tool is brainstorming.
Oh, yeah.
Don't censor yourself.
Yeah.
Just let ideas flow freely.
Yeah.
Even if they seem crazy at first.
Okay.
You never know what might spark a breakthrough.
It's like breaking free from those mental ruts.
Yeah,
We can all get stuck in.
absolutely.
Are there any other strategies that Holmes used?
Let me think.
Yeah.
Oh, he was a master of using analogies.
Oh, yeah.
He could connect seemingly unrelated things to gain a fresh perspective.
Oh, interesting.
Like you might compare a crime scene to a chessboard or a financial market to a beehive, drawing parallels and uncovering hidden patterns.
So if I'm struggling with a problem at work,
Yeah.
maybe I should think about a totally different field,
Right.
like music or architecture.
Mm-hmm.
See if any principles or patterns from those areas could apply.
Yeah.
Like cross-training for your brain.
Exactly.
Expand your mental horizons.
Yeah.
Look for inspiration in unexpected places.
I got it.
Okay, so far we've learned that Holmes was a master of observation,
Yes.
a brilliant logician,
Right.
surprisingly emotionally intelligent, and incredibly creative.
It's true.
It's like he was a mental ninja.
Right.
But wouldn't all those skills be kind of wasted if he couldn't communicate his findings effectively?
Oh, that's a great point.
I mean, what good is a brilliant deduction if you can't explain it to anyone?
You're hitting on a crucial point.
Yeah.
In his book, Bevelin dedicates a whole section to Holmes's mastery of effective communication.
Oh, really?
It's a skill that's often overlooked, but it's absolutely essential.
Yeah. I can see that what good is solving a mystery if you can't get others on board with your solution?
Right.
So what were some of his communication secrets?
Well, first and foremost, he was a master of structuring his arguments.
Okay.
He presented his evidence logically,
Yeah.
leading his listeners step by step to his conclusions.
Oh, okay.
He also understood the importance of clear, concise language,
Yeah.
avoiding jargon or overly complicated terms
Right.
that might confuse his audience.
So it's not just about being smart.
It's more than that.
It's about being able to communicate your intelligence.
Yes.
in a way that others can understand.
Exactly.
It's like that saying, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough.
Right.
Exactly.
He was a master of simplifying complex ideas
Yeah.
without dumbing them down.
Right.
And don't forget about his knack for using analogies.
Oh, right.
He could make abstract ideas more concrete and relatable
Yeah.
by comparing them to everyday experiences or familiar concepts.
It's like he was a master storyteller.
Yes.
Weaving together logic and evidence
Right.
and relatable examples
Uh-huh.
to create this really compelling narrative that drew his listeners in.
Exactly.
Wow.
He was also a keen observer of nonverbal cues,
Oh, really?
picking up on body language and tone of voice
Mm.
to gauge his audience's reactions and adjust his approach accordingly.
Wow.
So it wasn't just about talking. It was about listening to active listening,
Right.
where you're fully engaged and picking up on those subtle cues
Okay.
that tell you how your message is being received.
So it's a two-way street.
Yes.
Clear communication, persuasive arguments, active listening, understanding your audience.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not just for detectives.
No, not all.
These are skills that could benefit anyone in any field.
Exactly.
Whether you're giving a presentation, having a tough conversation, even just trying to convince your kids to eat their vegetables.
Yeah.
Effective communication is key.
Absolutely. It's a foundational skill that underpins so much of our success in life.
This is all so fascinating. We're really starting to see a different side of Sherlock Holmes now.
Yeah.
Not just the brilliant, eccentric detective,
Right.
but a master of human psychology and communication. And what's really amazing is that these aren't just like innate talents.
Yeah.
They're skills that anyone can learn and cultivate
Exactly.
with practice and dedication.
Right. And that's what makes Bevelin's book so inspiring.
Yeah.
It shows us we can all tap into our inner Sherlock Holmes,
Huh.
sharpen our minds, and develop those same skills to navigate the complexities of our modern lives.
Well, dear listeners, that's it for part 1 of our deep dive into a few lessons from Sherlock Holmes.
Great.
Join us for part 2, where we'll explore even more practical applications of Holmes' methods in our everyday lives.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of Sherlock Holmes and how his methods can really apply to modern life.
It's great to be back.
So in the last part, we talked about observation logic and emotional intelligence. I'm really starting to see that there's so much more to Holmes than just being like a brainiac.
Yeah.
It's like he had a system for thinking and learning.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
it's funny because in today's world,
Yeah.
we're always told to think outside the box.
Right.
But Holmes really lived that philosophy.
Yeah.
He didn't just solve crimes.
Right.
He approached every situation with a fresh perspective and a willingness to challenge those assumptions.
I'm curious to dig into that more.
Okay.
In this age of information overload,
Right.
we're constantly bombarded with data, opinions, distractions.
Yeah.
How can we cultivate that kind of Sherlockian focus and clarity amidst all the chaos?
It's almost like we need to develop a mental algorithm,
Right.
much like Holmes had to filter through all that noise
Right.
and identify what's truly important.
Yeah.
Like, remember how he could walk into a cluttered crime scene
Yeah.
and instantly zero in on that one tiny detail
Right.
that everyone else missed? We could apply that same principle to our daily lives.
So it's not just about absorbing information.
Yeah.
It's about being selective,
Yeah.
being discerning.
Exactly.
It's about asking ourselves,
Yeah.
what's relevant here? What's the signal amidst all the noise?
Precisely. Holmes had a system
Okay.
for organizing information, analyzing it,
Mm-hmm.
and drawing conclusions from it.
Right.
He didn't just passively consume data.
Yeah.
He actively engaged with it.
Right.
He looked for patterns, connections, and consistencies.
It makes me think about all the news we consume,
Yeah.
social media feeds we scroll through,
Right.
the endless stream of information we encounter every single day.
Exactly. If we try and take it all in,
Yeah.
we'll just end up overwhelmed and confused.
Exactly. It's about training ourselves to be more like detectives,
Okay.
questioning everything, looking for evidence, testing our assumptions.
So like in Scandal in Bohemia,
Yes.
how Holmes refused to just accept the obvious explanation.
Right.
And instead he dug deeper.
Uncovering the truth that everyone else had missed.
It's a great example.
Yeah.
It shows that sometimes the most obvious answer isn't always the right one.
Right.
It's about challenging the status quo,
Yeah.
thinking critically, and being willing to question what everyone else just takes for granted.
And that brings us to another key aspect of Holmes's method,
Okay.
his embrace of lifelong learning.
Oh, yeah.
He was never content with what he already knew.
Right.
He was constantly seeking new knowledge, exploring new fields, expanding his mental horizons.
It's so true.
You know, it's interesting because we often think of intelligence as something fixed,
Right.
like a score on an IQ test.
Yeah, like you're either smart or you're not.
Right. But Holmes shows us that intelligence is something that we can cultivate and grow
Yes.
throughout our lives.
Absolutely. And it's not just about accumulating facts and figures.
Right.
It's about developing a deeper understanding of the world around us.
Okay.
Holmes was a master of connecting those seemingly disparate pieces of information, drawing insights from history, science, literature, even the arts.
It's true.
He was like a walking encyclopedia.
Right.
But he also knew how to apply that knowledge in really practical ways.
It makes me think about how we approach learning today. We have so much information at our fingertips,
Right.
but it's so easy to fall into the trap of passive consumption.
Yes.
You know, we scroll through articles, we skim headlines, we watch videos
Yeah.
without really engaging deeply with the material.
That's a real challenge in the digital age.
Yeah.
But we can learn from Holmes's approach.
Okay. So how?
He was an active learner,
Okay.
constantly asking questions, challenging assumptions, seeking a deeper understanding.
So it's not just about reading books.
Right. He didn't just read books.
Yeah.
He devoured them,
Wow.
taking notes, making connections, applying what he learned to real-world situations.
It sounds like he was a master of what we now call active reading.
Yes.
Highlighting, annotating, really engaging with the text.
Exactly.
So it's not just about passively absorbing information.
It's about making it your own,
Right.
connecting it to your existing knowledge, and finding ways to apply it to your own life.
It's about cultivating that insatiable curiosity,
Yes.
that thirst for knowledge
That's it.
that drives us to explore new ideas, challenge our assumptions, and constantly expand our understanding of the world.
You know, when you put it that way,
Yeah.
it sounds less like detective work
Uh-huh.
and more like a philosophy for life.
Yeah.
It's about embracing that spirit of inquiry
Right.
and never losing that childlike wonder about the world around us.
Beautifully put. And it's a reminder that learning isn't just something we do in school
No.
or university.
Right.
It's a lifelong journey of discovery and growth.
It really is.
And it's not just about intellectual pursuits, right?
Right.
We also talked about emotional intelligence.
Yeah,
Which seems equally important, if not more so, in today's world.
you're right. In our increasingly interconnected world, emotional intelligence is no longer a nice-to-have skill. It's essential for building strong relationships, navigating complex social situations,
Yeah.
and even succeeding in our careers.
You know, I used to think of emotional intelligence as being all about being touchy-feely
Yeah.
and expressing your emotions freely.
Right.
But Holmes's example shows that it's much more nuanced than that.
Absolutely. Holmes wasn't necessarily the most emotionally expressive character,
Right?
but he had a very deep understanding of human emotion,
Yeah.
both his own and those of others.
Okay.
He could read people's body language, interpret their motives, and anticipate their actions.
Wow. It's almost like he had emotional X-ray vision.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And while we might not all have Holmes's level of insight,
Right.
we can still learn to be more attuned to our own emotions
Okay.
and those of the people around us.
Yeah.
And it starts with paying attention to those subtle cues.
Like what?
Body language, tone of voice, facial expressions.
Okay.
They reveal so much about what someone's really thinking and feeling.
So it's about becoming a better observer of human behavior,
Yes.
learning to read between the lines, understanding the unspoken messages that people are sending.
Exactly. And it's about practicing empathy,
Okay.
putting yourself in someone else's shoes,
Yeah.
trying to understand their perspective.
Right.
This is essential for building strong relationships,
Yeah.
resolving conflicts,
Yeah.
and communicating effectively.
It makes me think about all the misunderstandings and conflicts that arise from just poor communication or a lack of empathy.
Right.
If we could all develop those Sherlockian skills of observation and understanding,
Yeah.
we could probably avoid a lot of unnecessary drama and heartache.
You're absolutely right. And it's not just about interpersonal relationships.
Right.
Emotional intelligence is also crucial in the workplace.
Okay. How so?
Leaders who are emotionally intelligent,
Mm-hmm.
they're much better at motivating their teams, building trust,
Right.
and creating a positive and productive work environment.
So it's about being a more well-rounded individual.
Yeah.
Intellectually curious, emotionally intelligent, and socially aware.
Right.
It's about developing those human skills that allow us to connect with others on a deeper level
Yeah.
and navigate all the complexities of life with more grace and understanding.
Beautifully said. And it's a reminder
Yeah.
that while we may admire Holmes' brilliance and deductive skills,
Right.
it's his human qualities,
Yeah.
his empathy, his curiosity, his passion for justice that truly make him a compelling and enduring character.
And those are qualities that we can all cultivate
Yeah.
within ourselves.
Absolutely.
Regardless of our profession or background,
Right.
it's about embracing that spirit of inquiry, that willingness to learn and grow, and that deep compassion for our fellow human beings.
You know, one of the things that fascinates me about Holmes
Yeah.
is his unwavering sense of purpose.
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't just solving crimes for the sake of it.
Right.
He was driven by a deep desire to bring justice to the world and make it a safer place.
Yeah, it's like he had a mission, a calling, a reason for getting out of bed every morning.
Exactly.
And that sense of purpose gave him direction and fueled his passion.
Exactly. And it's something that we can all benefit from.
Right.
Finding our own purpose, our own passion, our own reason for being. That's what gives our lives meaning and direction.
It makes me think about all those people who feel lost or unfulfilled in their lives. Maybe they're stuck in a dead-end job, or they just feel like they're going through the motions. Maybe what they're missing is that sense of purpose, that spark that ignites their soul and makes them feel truly alive.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
And finding our purpose isn't always about grand gestures or heroic feats.
Okay.
It can be about the small things.
Oh, okay.
The way we treat others, the work we do, the choices we make every day.
Right.
It's about aligning our actions with our values.
Yeah.
And living a life that feels authentic and meaningful.
It's like that quote from Nietzsche. He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow.
I love that quote.
Yeah.
So true.
When we have that clear sense of purpose, it gives us the strength to overcome obstacles.
Yes.
Persevere through challenges and find joy, even in the midst of adversity.
And you know, finding our purpose,
Yeah.
it's not a one-time event.
Okay.
It's an ongoing journey of self-discovery and exploration.
So how do we do that?
It's about paying attention to what brings us joy, what makes us feel fulfilled, what we're naturally drawn to.
It's like Holmes's relentless curiosity.
Right.
Always asking questions, seeking new knowledge, exploring new possibilities. Maybe that same curiosity can lead us to uncover our own unique purpose.
Absolutely. It's about being open to new experiences,
Yeah.
trying new things,
Yeah.
and following our interests wherever they may lead.
Right.
And it's about being willing to step outside of our comfort zones,
Yeah.
embrace the unknown.
It sounds like you're describing a life filled with adventure, purpose, and meaning.
Yeah.
It's almost like a Sherlock Holmes mystery, a journey filled with twists and turns and unexpected discoveries.
That's a great analogy. And just like Holmes,
Yeah.
we may not always know where the path will lead,
Right.
but if we trust our instincts, follow our curiosity,
Yeah.
and never stop learning and growing, we're sure to uncover something truly remarkable along the way.
Well, dear listeners, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
We've explored Holmes's methods for observation logic, emotional intelligence, lifelong learning, and finding our purpose.
Right.
But there's still one more piece of the puzzle to uncover.
You're right. We've talked about how Holmes gathered information,
Yeah.
analyzed situations, formed conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
But what truly set him apart
Okay.
was his ability to communicate those findings effectively.
You know, that's something that we often overlook.
It is true.
We can be brilliant thinkers,
Yeah.
but if we can't articulate our ideas in a clear and persuasive way,
Right.
our insights will be lost.
Exactly.
So let's delve into that final piece of the Holmesian puzzle, the art of effective communication.
Welcome back to our final part of this deep dive into Sherlock Holmes. It's amazing how much we can learn from a fictional detective.
It really is.
Like he was a master communicator,
Right.
effortlessly weaving together logic, evidence, and storytelling to captivate his audience.
Right. His communication style was as sharp as his deductions.
Yeah.
And I think it's something we can all learn from,
Wow.
especially in today's world,
Yeah.
where effective communication is more important now than ever.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
We're constantly bombarded with information, opinions, and these competing narratives.
Right.
If we want our ideas to be heard and understood, we need to know how to communicate them clearly, persuasively,
Yeah.
and with impact. One of the things that always struck me about Holmes's communication style
Okay.
was his ability to tailor his message to his audience.
Oh,
He
okay.
didn't just spout off facts and figures.
Right.
He took the time to understand who he was talking to and adjusted his approach accordingly.
That's a great point. It reminds me of that saying, it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Exactly.
Holmes clearly understood how to frame his arguments in a way that resonated with whoever he was talking to.
Yeah.
Whether it was a skeptical client or a baffled police inspector or even just Watson.
Right. And he was a master of using analogies and metaphors
Oh, yeah.
to make those complex ideas more relatable and understandable.
Oh, okay.
He could take a seemingly abstract concept,
Yeah.
ground it in a familiar image or experience, make it instantly accessible.
It's like he was a translator.
Yeah.
Bridging the gap between logic and reason and human experience.
Exactly.
He could take a cold, hard fact,
Yeah.
turn it into a compelling story that captivated his listeners
Mm.
and made them see things from a new perspective.
And don't forget about his masterful use of language.
Oh, right.
He was precise, articulate, and always chose the perfect word to convey his meaning.
Yeah.
He knew how to build suspense, create drama, hold his audience's attention.
It makes me think about all those presentations where this speaker just drones on,
Yeah.
burying their message in all this jargon and technical details, and
Wow.
people's eyes just glaze over.
It's a common mistake.
Yeah,
We often assume that more information is better,
right,
but that's not always the case.
right.
Sometimes less is more.
Okay.
And Holmes understood the power of simplicity and clarity. He could cut through all that clutter
Yeah.
and deliver his message with precision and impact.
It's like that quote, perfection is achieved not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away.
Beautifully said.
And that applies to communication as much as anything else.
Absolutely.
It's about refining our message, stripping away the unnecessary, and focusing on the core essence of what we want to say.
Exactly.
So it's not just about being a good talker. It's
Right.
about being a good listener, too.
Yeah. Active listening, picking up on those nonverbal cues,
Right.
understanding the subtext, and responding in a way that builds trust and rapport.
Absolutely. Holmes was a master of observation,
He was.
not just of the physical world, but also of human behavior.
Yes. He could read people's body language, interpret their tone of voice,
Okay.
understand their underlying motivations.
Makes me think about all the times that I've completely missed social cues or misinterpreted someone's intentions. Like I was so focused on what I wanted to say
Right.
that I wasn't really paying attention to what they were communicating.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
It highlights the importance of active listening,
Right.
being fully present in the conversation, paying attention to not just the words,
Okay.
but the nonverbal cues,
Right.
and responding in a way that shows empathy and understanding.
It's about creating a connection,
Yeah,
building a bridge of understanding between you and the other person.
exactly.
And that's something that takes practice, just like any other skill.
You know, it's interesting. We often think of communication as something that comes naturally,
Right.
but it's actually a skill that can be learned and honed over time.
I guess so.
And the principles that Holmes used,
Okay.
clarity, conciseness, storytelling, active listening,
Yeah.
these are all techniques that we can apply in our own lives
Right.
to become more effective communicators.
So whether we're giving a presentation at work, negotiating a deal, or even just having a conversation with a loved one,
Right.
we can all channel our inner Sherlock Holmes
Yeah.
and become masters of communication.
And who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll even solve a mystery or two along the way.
Well, dear listeners, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into a few lessons from Sherlock Holmes.
It's been a pleasure.
I don't know about you, but I feel like I've learned so much more than just how to solve a crime.
Me too.
It's been a fascinating exploration of the human mind, the power of observation,
Yes.
the importance of logic and emotional intelligence, and the art of effective communication.
And it's a reminder that even though Sherlock Holmes was a fictional character, the lessons he embodies are timeless and universally applicable.
So as we go back to our everyday lives,
Yeah.
let's all try to be a little bit more like Sherlock Holmes.
I agree.
A little more observant, a little more curious, a little more willing to challenge our assumptions.
Yes.
And a little more adept at communicating our ideas with clarity and impact.
And maybe, just maybe,
Yeah,
we'll all become a little bit better at solving the mysteries of our own lives.
that's a great note to end on.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Okay.
We hope you enjoyed this exploration of Sherlock Holmes for the modern mind. Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep those minds sharp.